Welcome to the CoinRock show. team telling me we're a bit late, but we create times. Yeah, the team's saying we can't hear you. I think we should be all good now. Anyway, welcome everyone to the CoinRock show. We have our guest joining in about 25 minutes. Let's push this out in the groups. Guess what? Green day today. Look at these green bubbles. Look at these green bubbles. Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin touched 110 over the last 24 hours. Look at ETH at 2,700, up 7%. Solana up 3%. Doge 5%. Tron, Cardano 3 to 5% for all the majors. Good day. Good day. On the back of, I believe, some where is this? I think I pulled it up here. Let's have a look. So look, some of the headlines here. Let's have a look. Yes, so U.S. lawmakers, we'll get to that in a moment. There you go. Bitcoin hits $110,000 as U.S. China talks boost sentiment. It's always, I mean, we've been talking about this for months now, right? It's all about sentiment for crypto. Stocks too, of course. We talked about this back in January that we are in a Trump-driven market. Anything that Trump tweets or does or doesn't do impacts the market massively. And so it seems like there might be some resolution with China, or at least some talks. I'm sure you guys have seen what the beef, or the some say the orchestrated and pre-planned beef between Elon Musk and Trump. I've been hearing and reading some theories on both sides. It's spontaneous, and they both parties, basically between Musk and the Besant side, are not getting along, and so that led to this public kind of feud, which is a bit like, oh my god, what's going on here? But it's a no-win situation, right? So I've been talking to some friends who are very well connected politically in Europe and also in the US. It's a no-win situation, right, for both. It's probably the dumbest. If it's a real feud, it's probably one of the dumbest public fights you'll ever see, because they both cannot lose. I mean, there's no way that Musk gets reprimanded too severely, and of course Trump is the president, so it's two of the most powerful entities and groups in the world. No one wins, so it's a bad look for both. So at some point you have to put your ego aside. Tough to do when you have massive egos, but sometimes even if you've been a bit retarded, you have to come to the table and say, hey, I kind of fucked up on this one. So it seems like the drama is kind of over, but we'll see. I think that regardless, I actually think so. When this was breaking out, what was it, like a few days ago over the weekend, I told a friend of mine, I said, this is actually bullish. I actually think it was bullish, just because team telling me that we have one of the media assets here needs to be, where is it? Solo. There you go. One of the so it can actually be bullish in the sense that there was a big sell-off, a lot of fear in the market, of course, when those events happen, and maybe it's good. Maybe especially if you look at the recovery since, looking pretty good so far. So was this all pre-orchestrated? Of course, we live in a world now that it's always very difficult to know what's real, what's not real, what's planned, what's engineered. And so I would not be surprised if there's some credible sources that say that this is all make-believe, which is possible too. Stranger things have happened. So with that being said, we're here for bags going up, price going up, and over the last few days, it's been It's been looking good. Sources close to the talk say Washington may ease export restrictions on select technology products in exchange for greater access to China's rare earth minerals. So this is, I mean, it's so bad sometimes. Like, look, I've been pro-Trump publicly. Some of my friends, IRL friends, high school friends, follow my Twitter account. Like, how can you be pro-Trump? I'm like, well, a lot of the things he said actually make more sense than what Kamala was running on, or the scripts that Kamala was being fed to run on. I don't even know if she knew what she was running on. That's a different conversation. But look, if you think about this for a sec, right? Your biggest trading partner is China. For, in this case, rare earth minerals, right? And let's say you're poking the bear, right? You're like, hey, China, we're gonna add all these tariffs. Of course, China's basically the world's workshop, right? They manufacture everything. And it's always laughable to me when I see people on Twitter going crazy, like, oh, I'm not buying anything from China anymore. I'm like, dude, go to your kitchen, like half at worst, half your kitchen is Chinese. At best, close to 90% of everything you own in your house is Chinese, is made in China, including your iPhone. So, when you poke the bear too much and like, okay, we're going to tariff everything, right? All these 50, 100, 150% tariffs on China. And China's like, all right, bro, you know what? Those very rare earth minerals that you really need for extremely like high value manufacturing, defense, chips, we are actually going to restrict that. And so on the US side, and again, I'm not American, so I'm just an observer, like many of you guys. Even my American friends are laugh at this too, laugh at what's been happening. It's like, how can you impose insanely high tariffs and flip-flop and then not expect the other party to say, especially the other party being the Chinese, right, who are extremely strategic. For those who have not left the EU or the US and who have not ventured towards the eastern part of the world, you must know that China is light years ahead of the West in many different industries, but they can't export to those to Western countries for political reasons. And I'll give you the example of the car industry. Many of the cars built in China, the Chinese brands, are just better cars than many of the majority of the Western car manufacturers. But you won't see many. You're not seeing many Chinese cars in Europe or in the US yet. The product is much better though, right? So again, the West has that blockade against China. Of course, they import what they can, what they need, but also they restrict a lot of very good products made by and in China. So that being said, you poke China. China wakes up one morning, it's like, hey, bro, these rare earth minerals you really desperately need, we're gonna restrict that. And it's like, oh shit, maybe we actually have to have a conversation about this because we need those rare earth minerals. And it's like, okay, all right, let's talk. Maybe we can figure something out. I mean, again, I like the US, but it's like, as an observer, it's like, was that not part of your risk assessment when you put these tariffs out? Of course, if you impose these tariffs on major countries like China, of course, they also have ways to retaliate economically. So that being said, Bitcoin hits. Let's have a look here. June 6th was almost, so this is funny because everyone was calling for like 90, 85K. Remember that like about a week ago, right? This is like 5 days ago. Bitcoin going from like 107 to 102, especially with that drop, and then V-shape, beautiful V here, and crossing 110. Like I said, we're sitting at 109 now, right? So yeah, I don't think we're out of the woods yet. I think we would need to see, again, I think the US is in a very precarious situation with everything, right? The we had amazing guests on the CoinRock show talking about inflation, of course, the macro, the debt. I mean, it's there's a lot of different things happening at the same time, and it's the U.S. is stuck in many ways. Not easy, but this is good news. I'm we haven't changed our tune at CoinRock. We're medium to long term very bullish. Short term cautiously optimistic, but cautious. Keyword cautious, because as long as many of these things are not solved, and as long as we see this kind of flip flopping uncertainty, there's going to be the price is going to flip flop basically. So. And welcome everyone. In about 12 minutes, we have our guest joining. We're going to be talking about building in crypto with Morgan. Morgan is a CTO, and we'll talk about building in crypto and kind of like behind the scenes of, everyone talks about building. CoinRock is a venture builder firm. So we've built and invested in many different projects. Building is a word that many people want to use and are using, but when you actually get to the building part, many people actually stop because it's so fucking difficult to build in Web3. And this is coming from someone who has been an entrepreneur full time. I've been a full-time entrepreneur, meaning I have made money from my entrepreneurial ventures full time and lived off my entrepreneur career since 2007 full time, right? No part-time job, no side income, just entrepreneurship full on. I was lucky to find success relatively quickly. So year one, pretty much, not pretty much. I mean, to build a profitable business year one in 2007, and since then, I've grown multiple businesses in Web 1, mainly Web 2, of course, because transition from Web 1 to Web 2 as social media became more and more popular. But Web 3 is a different beast. And I say that because we'll be joined in about 10 minutes, and we'll talk about that with also. So Morgan is a co-founder and CTO of a Web3 business too. So let's have a look at some of the other headlines here. We don't have time to review everything. This is interesting. So just wanted to show you guys this. This is the new head of the SEC. Again, very different tone, very different vibe compared to what Gensler was putting out. So Atkins, new SEC chair, blasts Gensler. And Gensler, that SEC defends, and he defends crypto self-custody. This is great. So again, speaking at a policy roundtable titled DeFi and the American Spirit, Atkins argued that self-custody isn't just a technical feature, it's a core American liberty. Completely different, right? The tone, the words, and the energy coming out of the SEC now is again very bullish for the industry. Price will follow. We've said this for months. We're in this kind of limbo state now, this choppy range between the low 80s, even the high 70s to the 110s. A bit more bullish, of course, over the last day or two, but this is despite what's been happening in this choppy range, and you can see major traders being completely liquidated. I know several traders personally who have been wiped out over the last few months and crashing out publicly, or not publicly, so privately. It's a very tough market to trade, but I've been saying this on the show. This is what I say to our partners, to our teams. Just easy mode will come back. You just have to be patient. This is not easy mode yet. Let's have a look at some of the other ones here. So another one here, government, Hong Kong, of course, taps Chainlink. Not that I'm pro Chainlink. I'm neutral. I have no, not long or short Chainlink, but I like the headline, right? A government looking and talking to a crypto entity for advice. This is what you want to see in a growing market. U.S. lawmakers propose developer protections in crypto regulation bill. This is interesting. Again, we'll see. There's a lot of rumors, and it's still. So we want to see the framework that comes out of course, the U.S. this summer, hopefully end of the summer. So the House Financial Services Committee is preparing for a critical markup of the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act of 2025, known as the Clarity Act. One of the most discussed elements heading into the session is a proposed amendment that would ensure non-controlling blockchain developers and service providers are not classified as money transmitters. Again, this is in any new and developing industry, they have to make these laws up as they, as you see them, right? So we'll see what this, if this passes, if this is actually, if this becomes the norm. Again, very interesting to see that a lot of things happening behind the scenes, behind this choppy price action. Strategy buys $110 million worth of Bitcoin. This was yesterday. Metaplanet, the Japanese MicroStrategy, Metaplanet stock surges on $5.4 billion strategy. So this is interesting. The stock is up, I think 5 or 10 times. I think 5 or 10x since January, and it's up 26% over the last week. And this is off the back of the Bitcoin strategy. Another company, look at this, French crypto firm to raise $340 million for its own Bitcoin treasury. So Saylor from MicroStrategy started the trend, right? Then Metaplanet really went big, and dozens of other companies are doing the same thing. But look at this. Paris-based blockchain group is making a bold move to solidify its role as Europe's leading corporate Bitcoin holder, raising $300 million to buy Bitcoin. Japan approves new crypto brokerage license tier. So Japan has been trailing. Japan, huge country, very active in the financial services markets, the trading space, and at the same time notoriously bearish when it comes to crypto in general. Just the tax structure for when it comes to capital gains in Japan is horrendous. But again, remember, these countries have to change, and they have to attract money, talent, investment. And Japan's House of Councillors has passed a pivotal amendment to the Payment Services Act, introducing a new legal category that will grant crypto brokerage firms a more flexible regulatory path. They're fighting. We talked about this months ago, right? These countries now are going head to head because they need to attract crypto capital. They have to attract talent. They have to attract investment. They have to attract people traveling to the country. You can see El Salvador. We had several guests here on the CoinRock show who either have residency or travel in and out of El Salvador. And this would have been, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. No offense to El Salvador, but El Salvador was not high on the list of countries to go to, right? Simple as that. Now, very different story, right? They've, of course, on the security side, on the safety side, they've made major improvements. And of course, being pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin changes the landscape. And so it attracts, we talked about this, crypto, not just money, but just talent, capital, of course. And like I said, if you invest in a crypto startup in El Salvador and you go there once, twice a year, you're going to book hotels, you're going to eat out, you're going to just, spend money there rather than in your home country. So it attracts a lot of good things. Argentina, this was interesting. Remember when the market kind of crashed after the Libra scandal with the president of Argentina being involved? So he's been cleared. Argentina clears Milei in Libra meme coin promotion probe. So remember, he retweeted, for those who missed it, the president of Argentina retweeted a meme coin called Libra. And then he said, oh, no, well, I just retweeted. I didn't endorse it. I just retweeted. I didn't really know. I don't really understand crypto and everything. So luckily for him, now it's over. So he is cleared. Good. I think this is good. You don't want these things to drag on. And another piece of bullish news. And here, UK hires crypto specialist to recover bankruptcy assets. You can see the bottom line is I want to show you guys is that countries are now finally taking this whole industry seriously. So I've been saying this for months, for years, price will follow. I know you were not seeing, Bitcoin at 200K yet. Bitcoin's actually doing like amazingly well. We're not seeing ETH at all-time highs yet. We're not seeing Solana at the $300 to $500, $600, $800 level, which I strongly believe it can get to, and all the other, of course, majors following. But remember what we say. We say mid to long term, extremely, extremely bullish. Just have to basically wait for it, and it's fine to do something else in the meantime if you're waiting for easy mode. Easy mode will come back. The 4-year market cycle is up for debate. I personally believe the 4-year cycle is done, just because the buyer profile is very different than 2016, 2017, 2020 even, but that's a different conversation. Right now, we'll take a 3-minute break, 3 to 5 minute break, and we'll come back with Morgan. We'll have Morgan on the show, and we will talk about building in Web3. Let me just have a look at the team here. Yeah, building in Web3, and just what he thinks of the market. And we'll have a good conversation with someone who is also a founder in this space. So stay tuned. We'll be back in a few minutes with Morgan. Hey, Matthias here, and if you're enjoying this and want access to even more alpha, early stage deals and opportunities, and also behind the scenes insights on the markets, hit the link in the description and make sure you're subscribed. It's free and it puts you ahead of the curve. Let's get back to the show.
Hey.
There you go. Welcome.
It's nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too. So, let me just put you on the big screen. There you go. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to those who are just joining. Morgan is in the house here, and we're going to be talking Web3 building, of course. And so the way we start these shows, these guest shows, Morgan, is I usually read the bio I have, just to give some context. But then, of course, I want you to talk about your bio yourself, just so you can, elaborate on everything. And then we just basically see how things flow.
Sounds great.
So, how do I pronounce your last name, by the way?
It's Kuphal.
Kuphal. So, Morgan Kuphal, personal bio here. After building and selling an e-commerce business in college, Morgan shifted his focus to technology, working on computer vision and industrial automation projects at a robotics company. In 2021, he entered the Web3 space through the Chainlink hackathon, where he submitted an early prototype of what later became Chainlink Functions. After winning a prize, he joined Chainlink Labs as an engineer, helping build Chainlink Functions, a decentralized computation platform that allows smart contracts to access any data on the internet. Today, he's the CTO and co-founder of Tunnl, where they're building the infrastructure for content mining, enabling creators to earn tokenized incentives for content and engagement across X, TikTok, Instagram, and more. He's passionate about enabling trustless agreements by combining smart contracts, AI, decentralized Oracle networks, and social media. That's Morgan. That's your bio, the official bio. Tell us more.
Yeah, for sure. So got my start in crypto about 4 years ago now. I had come out of college just around COVID times, and I had studied robotics all through college. And so I did get a job in the robotics industry, but honestly, it was pretty tough, especially that time. You got to be physically there if you're working with robots, right?
Yeah.
And so, I had some really great experiences there, especially working with computer vision, which was kind of my passion at the time. But quickly realized like how much opportunity there was in crypto. And I wasn't really super involved. I heard about it, hear about Bitcoin in like college, but never really looked into it.
Yep.
But when I learned about smart contracts, that's really what lit the fire for me, because I had this experience with that e-commerce company I was running through college and always wanted to leverage influencer marketing. But if you try to do that, you reach out and they're like, okay, we demand, X amount upfront payment. And that was just a risk I couldn't take. I was just a really small brand myself. And because I'm like a no-name small brand, I couldn't just say, hey, I'll pay you after the fact, because I didn't have any brand equity. So when I learned about smart contracts, I'm like, this solves the problem perfectly. You can escrow funds and then automatically release those funds after creator actually posts whatever content you agree
Yep.
upon. However, I then learned like this is great. Smart contracts in theory can do this, but smart contracts can't access data from the internet, so they could never. Smart contracts can't read Twitter, right? So you actually
Yep.
need oracles to be able to get that social media data or really any data to be able to release funds based on some real world event. So
Yep.
after that, got into Chainlink, realized this is kind of the perfect solution for it, but they sort of didn't have all of the tools necessary, and that's when I really started building.
Hmm. So what is an oracle? So I think people see that word a lot and it sounds cool, but what
Yeah,
is actually an oracle?
sure. So an oracle, it's kind of like an all-seeing eye. I always like the eye of Sauron. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is some entity that can observe real-world events and then truly report about them. So, for example, a lot of people hear about Oracle, and I think the biggest use case for oracles in crypto is price feeds. What
Yep.
is the true price of an asset? Because there's all these different exchanges, and the price might vary a little bit between all these different markets. How do you find like that one real true price that
Yep.
aggregates all this data? And that is like one of the first big use cases for oracles. But they can be extended way beyond price data. Like in my case, social media data. I need
Yep.
an oracle to tell me, hey, how many views on YouTube does something have? Because if you just rely on some like single computer, if I just tell you like, hey, this video's got 1,000 views on it, well, how are you going to trust me? And so an
Yep.
oracle is a service that provides that data in a trust minimized way, so you can actually trust that that's real data.
So coming back to your e-commerce days, how long did you run the e-commerce business for?
Yeah, I think it was about 4 years.
Oh, nice.
Um,
Okay.
yeah,
What was the company? Like what was the
yeah.
the industry?
So kind of an interesting niche. It was ginseng root. So ginseng is a
Okay.
traditional Chinese herb that is
Yep.
it's grown primarily in like around my hometown in central Wisconsin. So sort of like weird, but I worked for as a field hand on a farm
Mm.
and then realized that these roots were selling for really high prices online because
Yep.
it is this medicinal herb used in traditional Chinese medicine is very highly valued for that. And I realized that the quality that was selling on eBay and all that was pretty bad. And so I
Mm.
actually had saved up all the money I made over that summer, went back to the farmer I worked for and said, hey, I want to buy some of your product and try my hand at selling it. Thankfully, it took off because that was really all the money I had saved up for college.
Nice.
And yeah, I spun that up and just would sort and package the roots, market it. It was wisconsingrownginseng.com. Website's still live today. I actually ended up
Yep.
selling it back to one of the brothers in the family of the farmer that I worked for. So
Nice.
I'm kind of proud to see that still thriving. But that was my first foray into business.
Nice. 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 What year was this?
This would have been 2017.
Okay. Yeah. 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 I mean, I come from, you know, information publishing and e-commerce, so very familiar with the stories that you mentioned about prepaying influencers. I mean, I ran a 50 plus person agency in London doing this for our own brands and clients. So very familiar with the headaches of dealing with influencers and at the height of the Instagram story craze. So six figure story deals. I mean, I've done a lot of those. And then following up, yeah. So I know definitely see the issue. So luckily we built a lot of brand equity. So we had credit with a lot of the ones we worked with, but yeah, it still is a problem. It was a problem, it still is a problem, right, for Web2. So jumping from e-commerce to crypto, I mean, it's a big jump too, right? You could have gone back into e-commerce because you had a successful store. So why the jump? Was it that? Was it like you wanted something else?
Yeah,
You
I
mentioned, of
think
course, opportunity, but
primarily for me, I just wanted to actually build tech. I kind of
yeah, yeah,
capped out at like, hey, this is the level of learning I'm getting. Like, I had this
yep,
huge amount of learning, like how to run ads, how to actually run a
yep,
business, customer service, building out a Shopify store. But it wasn't really technical. I mean, Shopify was
yep,
like
yep,
mostly no code, a little bit of customization, but that's it. And so I
yep,
really wanted to actually leverage, what I've been working for the last 4 years to get that degree for.
yep,
And so I thought that would be robotics, and that's when I really entered that. I was like, oh, this is going to be it. I think I probably would still be doing it if it weren't for COVID. But
yep,
now I just am so happy with all the potential that there is in Web3. And I think
Yep.
one of the big things too that has really stuck with me is how easy it is, or how much easier it is to be an entrepreneur in that space than it is in robotics. Like I
Yep.
always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur again, and I was just figuring out where to start. But if you're in robotics, I mean, the capital costs are just
Yep.
insane to start. And so I knew
Yep.
that if I was going to start a business, doing something purely digital was a great way to start. And, maybe down the road or like a decade from now, I could certainly see myself re-entering the robotic space once I have a little bit of a reputation, actually
Yep.
have the ability to raise that capital. But I'm really satisfied right now with being able to build, because really all I need to build is coffee, of course,
Yep.
and a
Yep.
laptop. And so if I have that, man, you can start a whole company.
Yeah, robotics is very tough, right? I mean, you see these huge acquisitions. Many of these robotics firms will sell for billions of dollars in the coming 5 to 15 years, right? What people don't see is, of course, there's only really two ways into that industry. One, you raise and you spend months, maybe a year or two raising, and two, you join, and then you branch out. But you join one, you join a startup or a robotics firm, and you build your reputation from within. But if you go the entrepreneur route and you raise, it's grueling. So it's you have the skill set. It's definitely something you can go back into at some point. But yes, you're much more sovereign doing what you do now with being able to build quickly. So
Exactly.
so heading into so what are you building?
Yeah, so right now, at Tunnl, we are building like infrastructure to allow creators to collaborate with brands initially.
Yep.
However, we're sort of opening this up, and we're providing engagement as a service, because I think one of the biggest shifts is it used to be that influencer marketing was super powerful because of this authenticity. Like a lot of times, people might not even know to what degree the influencer is collaborating with a
Yep.
brand. But the jig is up at this point, and I actually think that's for the best. Like if you see a post of a creator promoting a brand, like
Yep.
you kind of know it's paid, and I think that's fine. But it sort of shifts the strategy. So instead of having creators produce purely net new content, it's a much better alignment with the brand. And so
Mm,
we are now providing engagement as a service where creators can share content from brand accounts and then really anybody. So
yep.
brand means a lot of things. Start out brand means like
Yep.
company, and now there's personal brands, and now there's other creators that might just want to leverage this network of creators to grow their following. Or
Yep.
we see podcasts. We've worked with, I think, at least 3 podcasts now who want to promote their podcasts via
Hmm.
networks of creators. Especially if you're starting out as a creator, like it's rough out there. I mean,
Yeah.
the networks are ossified, so if you are a new creator that's trying to break into it, like getting a start is really hard. Like it's taken me
Yep.
well over a year to hit 1,000 followers on X.
Yep.
And so I think being able to say, hey, look, I want to pay like a little bit of money and make this happen a lot faster, it makes a lot of business sense for a lot of people.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. By the way, I say this on the shows, right? Tunnel has not paid us to endorse or show anything. We're just, we have Morgan on the show, and so of course, if he's building Tunnel, of course we're going to talk about what he's building. That's the whole point of having builders on, and sometimes it's investors, sometimes it's macro analysts. So of course we're talking about this is a place where we want to get real uh, builders and founders and investors and analysts on. So, that's the story behind Tunnel. So we're not
I am
paid to talk
definitely
about Tunnel.
not a sales guy either. So like I'm a technical guy. That's my
Yep.
entire bread and butter. That's what like really
Yep.
fires my engine. And so
Yep.
I always like focusing just on like, hey, what's the tech here and how can we leverage this to make people's lives better? I think in
Yep.
crypto, unfortunately, man, I'd almost say most of the energy, at least what I see on X, is a lot of people building things that aren't necessarily trying to solve a problem for a
Yep.
mainstream audience, but are kind of like solving problems within crypto. It's fine, I guess. Like I don't
Yep.
want to pass too much judgment on it, but I always saw this tech as something that could be applied to solve problems for mainstream audiences, and I
Yep.
think that's what we're working towards. But the real trick is, you've got crypto UX, which isn't super great, but it's like
Yep.
radically improved in the past couple of years. And so
Yep.
you have to start building for that crypto native audience, but always keeping in mind that you're building for a mainstream audience. So, um, yeah, I think that's really like what we're thinking about right now, and like kind of
Yep.
how the product works, and thinking, hey, how can we make this really simple? And really think that can apply to a whole lot of builders.
Yeah. Who is the ideal customer for you guys?
Yeah, so the current customer is really Web3 brands that want to promote something,
Yep.
typically like product launch, token TGE, something like that. However, now like we've got this new thing where you can come on, input a post URL,
Yep.
select a niche of people that you want to promote to, and then select a budget. Then you launch
Mm-hmm.
your campaign.
Yep.
Creators will instantly get notified. So all the creators on Tunnl get notified that are within that niche and eligible for it.
Yep.
And they can now quote and share your content and engage, share that with their audience. And then finally, as long as they do that, they submit their content that's sharing your post.
Yep.
We use it in AI Oracle to verify it, then automatically distribute payment after some holding time, just to make sure that they keep the post live, that it's not
Yep.
edited, etc.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Very interesting. In terms of the so when did you launch V1?
Yeah, so we've been building privately in a private beta since, man, all the way last August.
Yep.
Learned so much. I think initially we thought, oh, the whole problem is just escrowing of funds and security. It's like, oh no,
Yep.
that's like a
I
tiny
mean,
part of
escrows
it.
exist, right? I mean, we've used
Yeah,
them in Web2, so yeah, yeah,
exactly. And so, like, me being a builder, I'm like, oh, this is the use case. It's like, no, actually, there's so much more that goes into it. There's
yeah,
finding the creators, there's pricing them, there's managing this at scale. Like, these are large scale campaigns. And so we
yeah.
really had to focus on building that out over the last year. We actually just launched publicly on April 30th.
Nice. What? So you said you learned a lot. What were some of the lessons?
Yeah. Um, I think that the biggest thing I can say to builders is no one cares about the tech. I think you've probably been told that before, but I think that a lot of builders are pretty boneheaded in terms of like they're dogmatic. They think, oh, if you build it, they will come, and they really won't.
Yep.
And so my advice always to technical guys is find non-technical co-founders,
Yep. Yep.
because even if you think, oh, what are they adding? Like, I know how to build this whole thing. Like, what are they doing? Just like selling it? No, you need that perspective because you have these blinders on because you're in this
Yep.
technical space, and you need people that are non-technical to kind of like take those blinders off and say, hey, you might have this great technical mind and you might be like building this great thing, but you need to understand like normal users and they don't
Yep.
care about all this stuff. So speak to that and build for that instead of building to your own technical whims.
Yep. Yep. I completely agree. So, I've been a full-time entrepreneur, like meaning I've lived off of entrepreneurship since 2007 full time.
Nice.
I have seen more. I'm talking. This is a 90% to 10 ratio of technical founders versus non-technical founders. Technical founders being you, right? The engineer, the coder, the guy behind the scenes. 10% of the non-technical founders being the salesmen, the Steve Ballmers of the world, right? The going out, the raising money. 90% of if you look at 100 businesses that fail, it will be, from my experience, 90% will be those who have technical founders incapable of communicating or understanding how to communicate the idea they have, versus 10% of the salesmen, right? And sales gets a bad word. The issue with that mindset is that you will never succeed in any business if you're not a salesperson or if you don't align with a salesperson, right? So a face. That's why Bill Gates was the engineer and Ballmer was the sales guy. It's just that's how it works, right? And so coming back to what you said, I think that's probably one of the most important things for, especially in crypto. They love being, and I say they because we're in crypto, we're in Web3, but also I've predominantly more outside of crypto. They love this very technical, like the technical side of things. And to be honest, there's some things that I personally don't understand, right? I mean, I think no one understands because the space grows and matures so quickly and changes so quickly from a tech perspective, you can't know everything. But the best advice I think is exactly, and I 100% agree with you that if you're a technical builder and you don't know how to communicate this out and you don't have thousands of people following you, you will fail. It's as simple as that. No one cares about the product today if you can't get distribution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the thesis I have too. Like, I know so many builders that are incredible builders, but they
Yep.
don't
Yep.
know how to get that reach. And I just
Yep.
love to be able to like do something to help them and
Yep.
actually get that broadcasting, especially in the beginning when you're
Yep.
first building a product and you just have like no idea if anyone actually wants it in the first place. You
Yep.
need to get those first users. I know that DMs are a really great strategy, but man, are they labor intensive. And if you
Yep.
don't know your ideal customer yet, it's hard to figure out who you outreach to. So
Yep.
instead, it's better like, is there some way you can blast a message, on social media? And unfortunately, paid ads are a really inauthentic way to do that typically. So,
Yep.
you try to do a paid ad, but if you're like a really small builder, like you just launched some SaaS MVP and you
Yep.
actually want to get people to use it, if you run a paid ad, even if like that you've got a small budget and stuff, it sets this weird perception because now users see a paid ad, they come to your product, it's like super scrappy MVP. They're like, what the hell is this crap? But if
Yep.
instead it's like, hey, this kind of founder-led marketing narrative where you're promoting it on social media, people are coming in, you're sharing an authentic story and being open, being like, hey, this is an MVP. Like, there's going to be a lot broken with that,
Yep.
but we need people to use that and give feedback so we actually can make a product that someone wants. I think that's a really cool narrative, and I'd love just to be able to help all the builders that I know build these
Yep.
great companies that I know they're capable of building, but they need to enter that feedback loop.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The issue that also a lot of founders have is they don't want to give away, quote, give away equity or control. But the truth is, 100% of zero is zero, right? I mean, you can have all the equity you want if you have like two users after 5 years of building it, worth nothing, right? You're better off finding one great partner and connecting with them and having a bigger pie. What are some of the other lessons you've picked up since actually developing, building MVP and everything?
Probably that, like just how
Hmm.
hard it
Yep.
is to raise money in this
Yep. Have you
space
raised?
now
Did you raise
post
money, by
AI.
the way, for
We've
Tunnl?
raised an angel round, but like we haven't
Yep.
actually raised any money from VCs.
Yep.
I mean, like still very open to it, but I think that like in that time where we were really like, oh, we gotta raise a bunch of money, like that's how you start your business,
Yep.
right? It's like, yeah,
Yep.
you build an MVP first, of course, but
Yep.
after that MVP, it's time to raise a bunch of money. Um, those days I think have sailed, and it's for the best because it used to be that if you were going to build a really solid product, you needed to hire engineers because how are you going to write all this code that
Yep.
you need to write? But now we've
Yep.
got AI. And that cost of building businesses has been so reduced that there's really very little excuse to not just start building. And yes, we all know that more money can pour fuel on the fire and you grow way faster, and that's great. But there is so many people that I think could benefit from just starting and frankly almost giving up on raising money, or not even giving up, putting on hold. Let's say that,
Yep.
of just build something, man. Like you can talk to AI and have an MVP shipped in like less than 48 hours, probably less than
Yep.
like 4 hours for some really basic ideas. So just do that first. That was a really big lesson that I had to shift. And I think that it's a new lesson because I think it, like I said, it used to be that you really did need all this. So that was something that I've taken, and I think my co-founders and I have really explored that and realized like, man, we can build a really great company with not a lot of funding, and
Yep.
we know that we can take this funding and go to the moon. But in the meantime, just try to achieve that profitability fast.
Yep. There will come a time though where you will need that, because what happens if you don't take that money is someone else comes in, takes that money, and you might have heard of the story of Slack. Um,
Yeah.
so it does happen. So the issue with AI, or the pros and cons of AI, and you're absolutely right about building today has become cheaper, is that it's also cheaper for competitors to come in. And so
Yes.
an equal product with a $3 million raise where they can inject 3 million in marketing with an equal product, I mean, it's tough to compete with that. So
Yes.
you
So
will
I
make
think
that,
that the
you'll
main
need to
thing
make
is,
that decision at some point.
yeah, like don't turn it down. Like
Yep.
I'm never would advise a founder to like say I don't want capital. I think the it just VCs need to see a lot more now to
Oh yeah, I
deploy
agree,
capital than they
100%.
used to,
Yeah.
like so
Yeah.
much more. And
Yeah.
it's super discouraging if you spend a year trying to raise, and even if that's like 25% of your focus is on raising and 75% is on building, you are
Yeah.
much better off spending that first 100%. Because like the first year, no one knows who you are anyway. So
Yeah.
if someone steals your idea, like they probably didn't find you in the first place. Like, I mean, no
Yeah.
one, your ideas are pretty worthless until they're not. And so I would say for that, for like, you've got a year of building before I really worry too much about stealing your idea. Unless you found some crazy gold mine, which,
Yeah.
I've never heard of before, you've got time and just spend a year building, actually get some revenue, then try to raise first.
The the filters when it comes to VC, because we're on both sides, right? We're venture builders, so we also allocate. We honestly don't even look at pitches with no MVP built, because why would you? I mean, it's as simple as that. So whereas 4 years ago in the previous cycle, teams would raise $50 million off a pitch deck within 48 hours at the height of peak euphoria, right? So it has really changed, and I think it's good. It removes the froth, and also I think that it's a barrier to entry, and it shows that you are able to build something, and that you can put something together with either very little capital or with nothing. There's some industries like robotics where you need some money initially just to get like an MVP. But I agree. I think that the days of raising only on a pitch deck, or unless if you have a proven winner on the team, or over slash will be over very soon. I agree with that. Yeah. What's your vision for yourself and for Tunnl as a builder, really?
Yeah, I think I am just super passionate about building for mainstream audiences eventually.
Yeah.
So this is the advice I always give for crypto founders is you do need to build for that crypto audience first, because they are such diehard supporters and they're going to give you such fast feedback. If you try
Yeah.
to break into like mainstream, like you're not going to get that same level of
Yeah.
loyalty and dedication to helping build a great product. So it's starting there, but then always keeping in mind that you're building for a mainstream audience, because the crypto community is still super small. I mean,
Yeah. I
there's like
agree. Yeah.
holders and stuff, but I mean, people like crypto community of people that want to use Web3 apps.
Yeah.
There's a big distinction between
Yeah.
traders and token holders and all that, and actual Web3 users. And so focus on that. They are a great people to start with, and then expand beyond that. So that's like kind of my vision for Tunnl. We've
Yeah.
talked about, my co-founder actually has connections to a lot of the athletes in the NFL. His brother plays for the
Nice.
Saints,
Yep.
quarterback there. So that is really something that I'm passionate about. Is, hey, once we actually nail down this UX,
Yep.
how can we expand this out for athletes? Maybe an athlete wants to promote their highlight reel. Like that would be super cool if they could say, hey, this is all my stuff. Clip it,
Yep.
post it on social media, and get that out there. Because it used to be that content, like you sort of get incentivized to create content. But
Yep.
more and more, there's so much content being produced, and AI is just pouring
Yep.
fuel on the fire, that you actually do need to pay to get distribution now, unless you have that existing audience and following. I don't think that's going to change, and we can kind of debate whether that's good or bad for like
Yep.
the world at large, but it's happening and we have to accept that fact. So your existing network is going to be so valuable, especially when
Yep.
we get to this AI revolution where there's just AI producing content everywhere. No one really knows what's real.
Yep.
Those people that have managed to build a really close relationship with their followers, it's going to be hard for new people to do that. And so that audience they've developed is crazy valuable. And there's going to
Yep.
be so many people that want to leverage that authentic connection you have with your audience, because no new people are going to be able to do that in the same way.
Yeah, I completely agree. When ChatGPT came out about 2 years ago, we had multiple meetings with my teams outside of crypto, where the conversation was AI will change the game in a way that we don't even know. We just know it's going to change the fabric of society. And I agree with what you're saying 100%, because we had this talk 2 years ago. The value of audiences will go up. Building audiences has always been valuable. It's no secret, right? I mean, it's been like that for decades. But with the rise of AI, it will become even more valuable, because people will come back to wanting true human connection with real human beings, and that's the audience, and that's the connection you build with followers, with your fan base. If you're a celebrity, and you can see celebrities using it well, and you see other celebrities not wanting to play that game, and they will suffer at some point. You can see a lot of actors literally getting passed on for jobs in major movies because they have no social media following and they refuse social media. So it's fine if you're, the A-lister, the 1 in 1 million, 1 in 10 million actors, and you've built that brand. But for the majority service providers or actors, it's gonna be very tough. Well, athletes, same thing for athletes too.
Yeah, skill alone
Yeah,
is no longer enough. And I think
yeah,
it hasn't been for a while, but especially as AI lowers that barrier, it's just going to become more and more pronounced.
yeah.
Um, I don't know if that's a good thing for the world. Like, I'm
I agree with
curious
you.
because
I agree.
I
I
appreciate
don't know. It's just
meritocracy,
yeah,
but like, I mean, that's how I entered the crypto space. You know,
yep,
I did a hackathon. Like, I had no crypto experience. I was literally fresh grad out of college, been working at a robotics company for a few months, but that's it. You know, not a software engineer, and did a hackathon and won a prize. That
yep,
was an incredible thing to realize, like, oh, this is what meritocracy looks like. You can just build
yep.
something, and if you do a really good job, you're going to get rewarded for it. I do worry a little bit. Like, for example, producing really good content. You know, content
Mm,
used to be a meritocracy where you create great videos, you are going to get that distribution, people are going to share it. But now with so how noisy of the space it is, you know, it's really
yep,
hard to like actually rise to the top among that. I do worry about that a little bit, but instead of sort of fighting the tide, which I think is pretty inevitable, I'd rather like focus on what can you do about that and build
yep,
solutions to that problem instead.
yep. I agree with you. What about how was the hackathon? So walk us through the process. You know, I've been to several, but for those who who don't even know what a hackathon is, what is it? How did you enter? What was the process like?
Yeah, for sure. So I had just learned about so a hackathon is a coding competition where you
Yep,
basically have some finite period of time to go from nothing to building some sort of product. So it's not like hacking. I think there are some hackathons that are actually hacking. This is like building. So build-a-thon, I've
yep,
seen people adopt that term more. And there is usually, it used to be kind of just weekends where you just have like a long weekend. You know, people would bang it out for 48 hours, not sleep and ship something. But it's
yep.
really evolved where now they're like month-long virtual hackathons. And that is the one I participated in back in fall of
Mm,
2021, where it was 1 month long and uh, you just come up with an idea. You usually form a team. I always recommend getting a team. I had done it solo at the time just because I didn't really know anybody, and
yep,
come up with an idea and just build it. So it's a lot of work. Like it's probably
yep.
one of the periods of my life I work hardest is when I am competing in these hackathons because I've done many at this point. Um,
How
and
many contestants? Like how many teams?
I think that in that one there was between 1 to 2,000 at the time, but now you're
Oh
seeing
wow,
like
that's a
three
pretty big
thousand
one.
plus
Yeah, yeah,
people participate in these things. So cool to see that. So
yeah,
you got to come up with an idea. Like I think the idea matters so much. Like you have to have something that's really cool, and the execution. You know, not focusing so much on the tech, but especially that UI and user experience. I think sets people apart. But like I know for me, you know, I was easily pushing 12 hours a day for an
yeah.
entire month. I definitely called in sick to work a lot during that month. Don't recommend that necessarily, like, but it did work out for me, so there's that.
Yep.
um, yeah, and so you just like go from 0 to 1 and build something, and it's actually kind of funny because I never intended to like build this decentralized compute thing at the
Yep.
start. At first, I'm like, I had this very specific problem I wanted to solve of getting social media data so I could execute these smart
Mm,
contract escrow agreements to pay creators. And
yep.
at the time, there was no AI, so it's just based on views. Like, hey, you post something, you submit your link, you're going to get paid X amount per view.
Yep.
Um, and I realized that actually building a general purpose infrastructure to accomplish this was going to be easier than building specific use cases. Because if you build a specific use case, it kind of changes over time. If you build
Yep.
general infrastructure that you can then build on top of, that is really what I think kind of set the project apart and set what I was able to build apart. Because if you can build a platform to enable other builders, that leverage is just so powerful. And so I
Yep.
think that's a lot of what I've focused on in a lot of my hackathons.
Nice. Shout out to everyone watching the stream here. Zach, Aragon, Roaring Wookie, thank you for sharing this. Press like, follow Morgan and everything. Um, I love the you know, I think you know what's funny with hackathons. I think that it's a humbling experience for many developers because they're up against other very smart developers, and I think if developers in general, engineers would approach it with a not just the desire to win, but more to go through the process and see how it is, they would just grow so much faster and open opportunities because hackathons are really, you know, opportunity multipliers, right? You meet people. It's especially if you do a good job. I mean, it opens doors. So how did it? So 2,000 people enter. What happens with yours?
Yeah, so built it out and then it was time to submit. And I think
Yep.
one of the things too is focus on that submission because builders who can tell the story, like you could build the best code in the world, but as we kind of discussed, like you need that distribution, you need to
Yep.
communicate to like a lot of judges aren't even that technical. So I submitted, I actually, got a notification like, hey, you've made the finalists.
Nice.
And I remember Patrick Collins, big shout out to him. He was the one that ran the chat hackathons at Chainlink at the time. He's since moved on to Cypherin, which is an incredible security auditing company and also educational, like Web3 education. So they're educating a lot of developers. But anyway, so I got the notification, got to go on and like present the idea.
Yep.
And found out like, hey, I won one of the major prizes. I think it was $7,000, somewhere around there. And
Nice.
immediately, the biggest thing that I think people do is they win a prize and they don't follow up. The prize
Yep.
itself is great, but that's not you're not going to get anything just from winning the prize. The point is you
Yep.
win that prize and you immediately leverage that to all those connections. Like, hey, all those judges that like reviewed your project,
Yep.
immediately hit them up, say, hey, do you have any opportunities like jobs, internships, whatever. Like,
Yep.
it's not enough to win. The win is just that thing that you can use to now leverage these connections to move on to better things. And that's exactly
Yep.
what I did. So I reached out to the team, got in touch with a recruiter at Chainlink Labs. I guess they liked my interview because I
Very
got
cool.
hired there a few months later.
Yep. So how was Chainlink in terms of how long did you stay? What were you doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so I ended up being there for about 3 years. Um,
Oh, nice. Okay.
yeah, so I
That's very,
initially
very, that is like, that's 50 years in the real world.
yeah,
Very
I
cool.
suppose it is. Web3 things move so fast.
Yep.
So I got hired there. I didn't even like have that much software development experience, but I think just
Mm.
because I had that hackathon win, like they knew I could
Yep.
build, they knew I could learn fast. So got to work on the team, and I actually I kept doing hackathons. I had done two more hackathons while I was still working full time there, and
Nice.
that was a real grind to like make sure I was keeping my responsibilities while doing that. But I
Yep.
wanted to still prove out this idea of a decentralized computation marketplace. So
Mm.
I guess I'll kind of explain the project and what it was.
Yep.
Um, so you with Chainlink could only access certain data feeds at the time. So price feeds, they'd be writing the price of
Yep.
Ethereum on chain. And what I wanted was to get custom data. So data from, in this case, like the Twitter API. So there's no way to do that. So what I did is you could write a JavaScript string in your smart contract, send a request from your smart contract to Chainlink Oracle, a Chainlink Oracle network.
Yep.
They would all the nodes in that network would run this string of JavaScript code independently, come to consensus on that single response, like aggregating all the responses returned by that script, and then return that to your smart contract. So that's how it's decentralized because
Yep.
every node is running the code and they're coming to consensus and
How do they
returning back
actually
on chain.
agree? What's the
Yes.
process?
So you can use like different things like mean, median, and mode. In this case, it was
Yep.
a
Yep.
median.
Okay.
So you
So
just
you define how you want to find the average.
Yeah, in this case,
Yep.
it's just like hard set at median. But yes, there's
Yep.
like many different ways you could change that formula. But what the new nodes will do is via the Chainlink OCR off-chain reporting, they would come to
Yep.
consensus by talking among each other, and each node has their own private key where they could
Yep.
sign their response, and then they'd generate this signed signature. So every node says, "Hey, this is the answer I got from running the code, and
Yep.
I'm going to sign it." And then they all do that. Then they all
Mm-hmm.
come to an agreement on that one response. It's returned on chain. All the signatures are verified on chain to make sure that they're authentic.
Yep.
And that's how it works.
Nice. So that's what you built at
Yeah,
Chainlink.
correct. So that was
Nice.
the hackathon project where I like built that proof of concept, but it was
Yep.
super rough. Um,
Yep.
Kept kind of iterating on that concept to show its feasibility, and then I actually eventually, like after advocating internally, got put on a team with three other incredible engineers who
Yep.
I was able to build alongside and build this product. So
Nice.
going from not having any real software engineering experience beyond just like, hey, I had the degree, but that was really it,
Yep.
to being able to be on that team and learn from the best engineers in the industry. I will
Yep.
maintain the Chainlink team has the best engineers in the entire crypto industry, hands down. And so
Yep.
being able to learn there, I am so incredibly grateful for all the mentors I've had. And being able to be a part of that team and ship a product like that was so incredible. And so we had shipped that. about a year or so after I started, we had shipped it to testnet, and then I think it was like 6 months or so later, shipped to mainnet. And then kind of kept making
Nice.
sure it was like stable and making sure that this product was serving the needs that the customers had. So after kind of making sure that was stable, eventually left to go build Tunnl, which is the whole point of why I had built this initial proof of concept in the first place.
Yeah, I think it's very cool. I think that there's a lot of lessons here for any young founders, developers, engineers. I think that you kept a very open mind to building and showing your value, number one, and then learning also as you go, because in crypto you have to learn new languages all the time too. You have to learn new ways. Building in 2021 is we're 4 years in, and building in Web2 is the same. It's been the same since the 2010s, right? I mean, it's very simple. It's much easier now with all the page builders, and you mentioned Shopify, of course. I mean, you can roll a website out in 60 seconds and be selling.
Yeah.
Crypto is very different. You have to learn. There's a lot of things you have to stay up to date. On top of then security, of course. I mean, it's much tougher to build in Web3. I'm curious to hear more about. So you left. What was the reason for leaving Chainlink? Was it just like, hey, I finished this project and I want to build my own?
Yeah, I always had it in the back of my
Mm,
mind
yeah,
that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I mean, I had this in my mind where the whole time, like, and it took 3 years and it was a lot
yeah,
of hard work and I enjoyed every second of it. But I always knew that the vision was, hey, I can't build this infrastructure alone. Like, yeah,
yeah,
great. I
yeah,
got an idea and I can hack together some crappy MVP, but the ability to ship a secure product that can handle the scale and load necessary
yeah,
is an incredible task. And so I knew from day one, like, I can't build this on my own. And so
yeah,
I'd much rather align with an incredible team and ship something great and then build on top of that. And so it's in a lot of ways, it was like a double down because I
yeah,
doubled down where I had this thing. Great, I win this hackathon. This is awesome. People actually are interested in what I built. But recognizing that you are one person and
yeah,
that it takes a village to actually build something great is really important. So that's another piece of advice I'd give for builders. I think
yeah,
there's like a lot of hubris where, oh, I'm an engineer, I'm this gigabrain guy, I've got all these great ideas. Like, okay, great. But like recognize your limitations that you're one person and align yourself with other people because that is actually how true value is created.
yeah,
Yes, maybe there will be this utopia where a solo founder can build some huge company with AI. We're not there yet.
yeah.
And
I agree.
admit
Yeah,
that and align yourself with people instead.
yeah, yeah. Completely agree. How is the Tunnel team now? So it's how many co-founders, founders, team?
Yeah.
How big is the team?
So we've got a team of 3 co-founders and then
Yep,
2 engineers at this time. So front end, back end. So we've got
yep,
my co-founder Kyle. He is the CEO of the company. He has a sales background, worked at Service
yep.
Titan, which is big. That's been huge.
Nice.
Then also another co-founder, Jake. He is a really incredible designer. And that's another big thing too. If it were up to
Yep,
me, everything would just be a CLI tool. But having somebody that can actually create these user experiences is great.
yep.
And then 2 engineers that we've hired from Nigeria. That I found the first guy from actually Chainlink hackathons. I would go through
Nice.
every single hackathon project, and I
Yep.
would reach out to every single person on LinkedIn and then connected with him, Adamola. He's been just an incredible engineer, and he actually referred our backend engineer Jerry as well. So big shout
Yep.
out to those guys. I could not be more happy. And one of the cool things about crypto too is the access to this international talent pool.
Yep.
That is just incredible. I mean, like we're a small, scrappy company. And so we can't pay like a 200K
Yep.
Silicon Valley tech salary. And so
Yep.
being able to leverage this and then allowing your employees to share in these rewards as you grow has been something that's been very rewarding.
Yep. I agree. I think that what I like about hackathons and any type of challenge or event is it filters out the lazy. Simple as that. If you can't show up for a week, even a weekend or a week or a month, it just those who show up and actually finish the marathon, they've gone through pain. They've had to go through long days, long nights, building questions. Is this good? Am I good enough? Is this good for me? And just discipline. So it filters out the weak. And we talk about meritocracy a lot on the show because I grew up in pro tennis, coming from as a pro athlete. So look, only the strong survive. Simple as that. And a hackathon just shows who is still standing at the end of the whole weekend or the week's end. So I think it's a very, very good move to first of all to see who's performing at those, and then hire from that too. What's your view on the market? If we step aside a bit from what you've done in Tunnl, what's your view on the crypto market as a whole right now?
Yeah, I'm honestly, I do my best to actually pay attention to markets as little as possible. I try hard to do that
Yep,
because it is such a distraction and it
yep,
can be so demoralizing. Like the high highs that you get from seeing that price skyrocket up
yep,
don't actually justify those low lows that you get. I mean, it's one thing for
yep,
traders, like I'm not really part of that world, but whatever,
yep,
But
yep,
for builders, you need to show up every day regardless of what the market is doing. And
yep,
so if you are subjecting yourself to this dopamine rush, then crash that comes from watching the price all
yep,
day, you are just going to wreck yourself and it's going to be way harder to show up every day. Like if I
yep,
was looking at price charts during a hackathon and just seeing like price climb and fall and climb and fall, it would have been like 10 times harder for me to show up and just do great work. So my advice to builders is like, don't look at the market. I mean, it's one thing
yep,
to like, hey, buy Bitcoin and hold. I think we all know that it's probably
yep,
like the safest advice that you can give in crypto. But just try to not trade. And that would be my advice to builders out there because
yep,
you builders, like you are the ones that are going to create this whole industry. Like, yes, traders provide capital and all this stuff, but at the end of the day, you builders are responsible for making this whole thing go. Without
yep.
you, nothing works. Um, Keep that in mind and then ignore everything else and just double down and build. I mean, just talk to users and your signal should have nothing to do with price and nothing to do with the market is. And if
Yep.
users even bring up price or stuff like that, just ignore it. And I think
Yep.
sometimes I
I agree.
worry that projects that rush to launch a token right away, now they are just shooting themselves in the foot because they're going to be so focused on this token. Their community is no longer going to care about the product. All the
Yep.
community is going to give a shit about is the token. And so you've ruined your signal.
The product must lead.
Yes.
The product must lead, and we have both. We have products and tokens, and sometimes the community knows us and how we roll, and they will say, "Oh, what's up with price action?" I'll say this because some of them watching this, I tell them, I don't work for the price action. I don't care about the price action.
Yep.
Simple as that. We build. We have the teams that build. And that's great. Of course, hey, if you buy, that's on you. And I don't live on the charts. I don't care about the charts. And it's a bit weird. Like, oh, what do you mean you don't care? It's like very different. These are two very, very different skill sets, right? The traders. I'm not a trader. Of course, everything I agree with what you say about long-term Bitcoin and everything. I think the Bitcoin is of course extremely bullish long-term, but I don't care about the 1 minute chart. It does nothing. It brings no value to the teams. It brings no value to the engineers. It's a distraction for many of them. Until there's something tangible in a product, there is no use in being in subjecting your emotions to the highs and lows, because it can be depressing,
Yeah.
especially building in over the last few months, for example, when you're chopping between 78 and 95, 100, and then a single Trump tweet crashes down. It's like, why would you put yourself through that pain? Just build, and price action is irrelevant when you're building initially.
Yeah. And I'm not
Yep.
against tokens too. Like there's a
Yep.
place for tokens.
Yep.
I just really worry like so in my Telegram, I think I got 3 messages today from like launch pads being like, "Hey, help get funding for your project." And I
Yep.
really worry about builders who fall prey to that, who don't have that vision, who maybe they're only a year in the industry and they haven't
Yep.
seen the inside of how it works. That they do this and they ruin this great idea that they have, that they
Yep.
could have
Yep.
had this awesome product that helped real people, but
Yep.
instead they rushed a token, they launched it, and then all the focus went to the token. Whether it
Yep.
gets rucked or whatever happens to it, they kind of shot themselves there. So I
Yep.
really think that yes, there's a place for a token, but focus on that product first. And
Yep.
it's hard to say no to the money sometimes because you see these ICOs and
Oh yeah. Yeah.
IEOs and stuff, and
Yep.
you're like, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be great? But you don't
Yep.
actually recognize what kind of happens. And then you also don't realize like what people don't see is how much allocation gets given away. Like people don't realize
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
builders get
Yeah.
screwed by a lot
Yeah.
of these platforms
Especially
too.
new builders who don't know.
Yes.
Young, you see the money, you don't know what you're giving up, how much you're paying for that money, and they don't know
Yes.
that. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the worst thing too is a lot of times, even that builder was just naive, they can get their reputation ruined by something that
Yep.
wasn't their fault.
Yep.
And like, yeah, I guess like they have to hold some blame of not being a little bit more aware of what's going on. But at the same time too, like, man, I feel bad for like a younger builder, a newer builder who just,
Yep.
they got in with the wrong crowd. They kind of got sucked along, and now they've ruined their own reputation because your reputation is the most valuable thing there is in this industry.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, we have a few minutes left. What are you the most like? What gets your attention in the market today? What are you the most interested in? Anything you want to mention?
Yeah, I think right now I am most interested in stablecoins. The kind of boring, but I think best product market fit use case there is for crypto. And I'm bullish on builders that are taking
Yep.
platforms for existing industries, bolting on stablecoin payments instead of the traditional Visa or banking or whatever, and allowing that to flourish because it has the best mainstream potential. Because look, if you have like some volatile asset that's used for
Yep.
payments on your platform, you are already excluding yourself from most of the mainstream like user base
Yep.
out there. So instead, focus on stablecoins, double down on that. And I think building
Mm.
wallet abstraction plus stablecoins and integrating that into your app is probably one of the best things over the next 2 years to get traction with real mainstream audiences. So I would really pay attention to that. And so I would love to see more people not even necessarily coming up with net new ideas for apps, but say, hey, here's like a Web2 app that works pretty well. How
Yep.
can we put stablecoins into this thing and make it even better? Because credit card fees of like I was paying a
Yep.
2.9% with Shopify. But if your
Yep.
profit margin's 15%, that 2% of like the
Yep.
total payment price hurts a whole hell of a lot more than you think. Like at first you're like, 2%, like who cares about 2%? That's not enough
Yep.
of an unlock for me to like justify using stable coins and all this extra work until you realize like it's 2% of the total, not 2% of your profit. And so
Yep.
that is what I really want to see is more people doing that because payment providers and payment processors are kind of screwing over a lot of entrepreneurs, and I really
Yep.
want to see entrepreneurship flourish beyond crypto, beyond even tech, like even just traditional e-commerce. Figuring
Yep.
out ways you can plug stablecoin payments into that, super bullish on it.
I agree, especially seeing how regulation is moving into making it a much, well, first of all, a much more respectable and respected asset class in itself. In crypto, I think, we've seen, of course, Luna in the previous cycle, which was a cautionary tale on how not to run a stable coin, and I think it's going to give a lot of ammo to the regulators in a good way. I think if we want more people to use crypto, they need to feel safe, which means that there needs to be guardrails for stablecoins for sure. We had the co-founder of Tether on the show I think it was probably 2-3 months ago, and his perspective was very clear on stable coins. One of the best use cases for crypto is the use of stable coins, of course. And now I think this is the stablecoin cycle for sure.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
definitely. And I think a lot of people are going to be a little bit demoralized about that fact
Yep.
because it's not crypto tokens.
Yep.
But I think that it's so much better for the long-term health of this industry. And the more legitimacy we get to the industry at large, price will go up with
Yep.
usage. And so
Yep.
focus on usage, price is a lagging indicator.
Yep. All right. Last question. I have to ask this. This is the question. This is the question. Everyone in the audience knows that this is the question. The question is price action, pure price action. You have to put your price action hat on now, just
Oh
for this
no.
last one. What are you thinking and seeing? What is your estimate or price action goal target for Bitcoin for this cycle? Let's say in the next 6 to 18 months.
Six to
Which camp are
18
you in?
months.
Yeah.
So I know nothing. I'm going 150K. I think that's probably on the conservative side of it for sure. But I also think that the downside risk is really low. So I do think
Yep.
150K, that's what I'm going to place my bet on. But the reason why I still think like it's conservative, but I would always, double down on Bitcoin over and over is I really don't think we're going to see a crazy crash. And as
Yep.
somebody that is putting money away, like Bitcoin is like, yeah, I've got some money in savings, but like Bitcoin's kind of my savings account. And so
Yep.
just knowing that I don't think we're going to see some huge correction, that's what gives me confidence to keep putting money in.
Yep. Very cool. Morgan, anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I guess just check out Tunnl at Tunnl_IO on X. That's really the best place to follow us and stay tuned. We are definitely looking for more content creators, especially in the crypto space, to join the platform. So check it out. And also, yeah, if you are a Web3 brand or you want to do some marketing and really capture the narrative on crypto Twitter, give us a reach out and yeah, hit me up.
Very cool. We'll put all the links around the articles that come out on CoinRock Media. So yeah, make sure to follow Morgan. It was a pleasure talking with a real founder in Web3. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you everyone for joining, and we will catch you next time.
Thank you. Take care.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you got value from this episode, you're going to love what's coming next. So subscribe now. We drop new episodes and videos several times a week featuring power players, market movers, and insiders from the financial world. And if you want access to deals and insights we only share privately, hit the links in the description and we'll see you on the next show.